This is the Unspoken Podcast on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a cheap seat sports production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It is episode number 24. I'm Tom Aldano, along with Nick Federa, as always. And with a special guest, we have Nick Morgasen, the president of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, how are you doing?
How's it going today, guys?
We are feeling fine, and we're ready for the hot takes. So bring them while they're still hot.
Yes, I do have a hot take for tonight. I'm so happy we finally figured this out, but we've been delayed a half hour for technical issues, and it was the...
Are you surprised?
It's the stupidest issues, too.
What are you going to do?
I guess, yeah. What are we going to do? It's live well, not live TV. We're not on TV, but the internet, folks. So, boys, what do you want to get started with? I guess we got to get started with the NBA draft because it is our pretty much the top story of the sports world today. Unless you want to get into my hot take with the breaking news.
I want to hear the hot take first.
Okay, we got some breaking news, everybody. And Nick Federa, I don't know if you heard about this trade that just happened. Nick? Hello? Hello? Are any of you guys there?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't hearing Nick Federa. Nick Federa, can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, we may have lost Nick.
Technical issues at its finest.
Yeah, it looks like we've lost Nick. Looks like we lost him just like last episode. So, you know what? Nick Morgasen, you are here. So, you know what? Since you are the NBA expert, let's get started instead with the NBA draft. We'll have to hold on to hot take, ladies and gentlemen. But that's live TV again. So, Nick, NBA draft. Quite an interesting draft yesterday. It's weird. It's like the offseason has been more exciting than the NBA finals, in my opinion.
Well, the way the NBA draft went, people watched the first round because they want to see the top 10 or 15 picks. Now, what really surprised me about this draft was, did you see the amount of top 10 picks that were actually traded so far?
I saw, I believe, and I'm trying to find a whole list of pretty much, the entire NBA draft. I had a thing before. But I was watching the NBA draft, and there were quite a few trades. Of course, there was one very big trade that occurred.
Would you be happy to be talking about the Jimmy Butler trade?
Yes, I am talking about the Jimmy Butler trade.
Now, this trade baffled me, surprised me. Now, sorry, I don't have the Stephen A. Smith thesaurus in front of me, so I can't pull the words out. But when I saw this trade go down, and I have it in front of me right now, Jimmy Butler got traded to the T-Wolves for Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn. Now, don't batter me for this last name, but Lauri Markkanen and the rights...
Markkanen, I think it is.
Close enough. And rights to Justin Patton, who was the 16th pick.
Right.
Now,
Markkanen was the 7th pick.
But there was a lot of... If you saw the reports, they messed up the picks and the reports and all that stuff. But I've seen this all morning. I watched the whole first take, which I never do. And basically they were saying that whoever gets the star is the one that's the winner in the trade. And I believe it or not, the T-Wolves won this trade hands down, 100%. Don't want to hear anything else about this because Jimmy Butler is a star. Now, my hot take for this would be, oh, it looks like we got Nick back.
I got him. Yeah, I'm back. Right. Okay, so.
You joined us right in the middle as I was talking about the Jimmy Butler trade.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically what I was saying is Jimmy Butler is the star. The T-Wolves won the trade. And the Bulls basically got, as I like to say, a baseball in a bucket of baseballs. So because Zach LaVine is, I guess, your high-flying star who got injured with a back injury the season before. Chris Dunn, no one knows who he is. Lauri Markkanen, however you want to say his name, no one knows who he is. And the rights to Justin Patton, no one knows.
Markkanen and Patton are both what's it called? They're both draft picks. You never know what you're going to get in a draft pick. That's the bottom line.
No, I understand what you're saying, but the way that this is going, you'd rather have a ready-made star than go after all of this boatload of you-know-what that you don't know what you're going to get from these players.
Yeah, but draft picks are such a crapshoot anyway. You will never... I mean, think about all the past 5 years. Maybe, yeah, let's do 5 years. Of the top picks in that draft, I bet you a good maybe 65 to 70% of them are, not even playing in the league.
They're either overseas or they're in the D League, which is now going to be called the G League thanks to Gatorade. So stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid.
No, but if you ask me, I'll answer Nick's question about the draft picks. Now, I actually think the percentage is higher. I think it's probably closer to 75 or 80% of players in the draft are either overseas or they're not playing at all. But if you saw the new rules, and maybe we'll get into this a little later, they now have something that's called the two-way NBA contract, which is now you can earn money in the G League, but you can now be on the NBA roster for up to 45 days and make an NBA salary. So now they're kind of incentivizing players to go to the G League and then make their way up to the NBA.
Kind of like the minor league system.
Yeah.
Bingo. Yes.
That's actually pretty interesting. It's you can certainly say the D League which is now the G League, is pretty much developing over the last few years because
Wait a minute, G League? I'm sorry to interrupt, but what the fuck? I didn't.
The Gatorade League.
They're calling it the Gatorade League now.
The Gatorade has a sponsorship deal or something, so now the D League is now going to be called the G League.
Let's put it this way: the NBA is becoming the NFL, the no fun league of sponsors.
It is, but still, that's neither here nor there. The thing is, continue. I'm sorry to interrupt.
But basically, with this two-way NBA contract, as I was saying, it's like the minor leagues, like you said in baseball, where a guy could start out in the minors. They have no contracts in the minors. They basically get a stipend every week to play in the minors, and they take these crappy buses back and forth to all these hotels, and and then once you go to the majors, your contract is purchased to go to the majors. Now they're kind of doing that, where the G League is your minor league, and now your contract gets purchased for up to 45 days, and you can earn an NBA salary along with whatever stipend you probably get in the G League.
Now, I consider that very interesting. And getting into the draft picks themselves, Markelle Fultz with number 1 to Philadelphia. No surprise there. And that seems to be like the next step in the process.
I have a hot take here, though.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Danny Ainge probably made the worst decision in the draft so far by trading the 1 pick, the number 1 overall pick. So the reason I say that is Markelle Fultz seems like a one-of-a-kind guy. Now, I wouldn't say he's a LeBron James type player where he came out of high school and just basically showed off to everybody, and now he's talked about forever and ever and ever, and even after he leaves the league. But Markelle Fultz seems like that all-star caliber player. First of all, I think the rules need to be changed with the draft, because whoever the fuck allowed the Celtics to end up with the first pick after being in the conference finals, almost make it to the finals, that's got to change.
You can blame the Nets for that, though.
Well, yeah, that too.
I was going to say, you can't blame the Nets for that. That is the Nets' responsibility. They had the number 1 draft pick, and they could have changed around their whole, maybe not change around their whole team, but have gotten a player like Fultz to increase their potential. And, well, now they have what? Shit. I mean, let's face it. When you saw the team needs thing on the bottom of the ESPN screen, they said everything for the Nets. They need everything.
Well, if you saw the if you saw the trade they made yesterday, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
It's probably one of the most one-sided trades I have ever seen in professional sports, and that's coming from somebody who watches baseball, a lot. And one-sided trades are pretty much, the stock and trade of, if you'll pardon the pun, of the MLB. But to see them walk away with a bag of shells and it ties back to the Jimmy Butler thing where I was getting Nets flashbacks.
But you brought up the Nets thing. Well, the Nets and the Lakers made a trade. Now, people are going to say, oh, the Lakers just made a trade because they were trying to do whatever. Newsflash, everybody. The Lakers were making a salary cap dump so they could make room for, let me see, Paul George and, maybe LeBron James after the 2018 season.
Stop begging for him. He's not going anywhere. They really need to.
Yeah.
You want my other hot take?
Okay.
LeBron is going to LA after the 2018 season.
You really think so?
That's your prediction. You're guaranteeing it.
Yes. I'm guaranteeing it because Believeland is starting to crash down. They lost their freaking GM. Dan Gilbert, who's probably one of the worst owners in all of the NBA, could not come to an agreement with his own GM and David Griffin, who got this team its first ever NBA championship and took the team to the finals for 3 years straight. And now, for some reason, he's out looking for a job.
I got to agree with you. I think that's probably, I don't know about LeBron going to LA, but I agree that was probably the worst thing the Cavs could have done. And now, I mean, what happens now? Because I feel like, it's an excellent question, but I think personally, I doubt LeBron would leave Cleveland, but
what's keeping him there?
Maybe the fact that what happened, Nick?
His conscience is keeping him there.
Maybe. But I feel like the chances are greater if they don't make it to the finals a fourth year in a row. Because as much as I rant on this super team shit, I don't like how Golden State and Cleveland are both technically super teams. If Cleveland does nothing in this offseason to, help LeBron and they just go with the same team, if they don't make it to the finals, I feel like LeBron just might leave.
I mean,
I don't know if it's going to be to the Lakers, because doing my research on this, the Lakers tried something like this for LeBron in like 2009 and 2013. The first two times he went to different teams and they were unsuccessful both times.
But the way you look at these situations, if you take a look at Cleveland's roster right now, who do they have? LeBron, Kyrie. You have J.R. Smith, who's kind of your iffy, hot and cold shooter. You have Iman Shumpert, who can't stop kicking people. I don't know. This team is a nothing right now, in my opinion, even though they made it to the finals back-to-back years. They need to make a change. I heard the Paul George rumors for a while, but that was like the first time I ever heard of a rental in the NBA. That's more of an MLB thing.
Yeah, it is.
But the way the Paul George situation looks like it's going to play out, I think he's going to end up with the Lakers either right before the season starts or before the trade deadline, because all the sources I'm hearing are that basically the Lakers don't want to wait until the end of the offseason, because if he goes somewhere else and they win, or he goes to Cleveland, let's say, and they win a championship, do you think he's going to want to leave?
No.
No.
And then LeBron ends up staying, he's going to stay.
Yeah, but that ties back into my conscience, because into the conscience crack before, because honestly, he's gone through an avalanche of shit when he left from Miami, and then all of a sudden they were ready to praise him as a minor deity when he actually came back, because Cleveland fans really aren't used to that, and somebody actually coming back to Cleveland, but and the fact that he was able to bring them a championship, their first in 57 years, I think, in a way, I think they would hate him more if he left again.
I know, but there's one person and I'm going to ask you both this question. Who's the one person that, besides himself, that controls the situation in Cleveland? That made him, that fucked LeBron James over and ended up having him go to Miami. Who did it?
Dan Gilbert.
Okay, so Dan Gilbert did it the first time. Now Dan Gilbert got his nose out of joint the second time and said, I'm going to fire David Griffin. And if you saw the tweet from LeBron James, how he said, It was unfortunate that David Griffin got fired, and I really like the guy. He's tipping off that you pissed him off.
Pretty much. I will say that pretty much. That I don't think that's any secret. LeBron is pissed at this result. I mean, at this action by the owner.
Now, to look forward into this situation, the rumors are now that Chauncey Billups is going to go to the Cavs and become the president of basketball operations. Now, I don't understand this move for one reason. This guy has no experience in a front office whatsoever. He's never been an executive. He's never been an executive assistant. He's never been anything. Now there's a rumor going around that Dan Gilbert has met with Chauncey Billups 2 times now to take over the operations for the Cavs on a 5-year deal.
Here's my question. Did LeBron have any say in this? As far as
No. If you read the reports, Dan Gilbert did this on his own without even asking LeBron about what he thought about it. He didn't even run by LeBron that he was firing David Griffin.
He usually goes to LeBron for everything, from what I hear.
You know what this is? This is basically a game of cat and mouse, and Dan Gilbert is finally saying, hey, LeBron, you're not going to control my team anymore. If you want to be on my team, great, but I'm the owner. I make the decisions, and you have to fall in line now.
Which, the hammer has not hit him in the head where he goes, this team goes, and Dan Gilbert seems to always be the last person in the room to realize that.
And that's why I made the prediction that LeBron is going off to L.A., and he wants to be with Magic Johnson.
Here's what I'm going to say. As the conversation goes on, and as we're discussing this more and more, it's weird. Not 100% certain that he'll go to LA, but I will say he probably will leave the Cavs if they don't win the championship next season.
I'd say that's more and more likely, but I still wouldn't put betting odds on it.
That's true.
I don't know if you heard this in the offseason, as everyone is reporting on it, that every decision, every trade, every free agent signing is all based on LeBron James. You guys have heard that, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So wherever LeBron goes, all the dominoes are going to drop after that. So that's why the Lakers are a little hesitant to make the trade. And Adrian Wojnarowski, who works for Yahoo and The Vertical, reported before the draft that the Lakers were not willing to move Brandon Ingram or the number 2 overall pick for Paul George. Now, will the price come down, or will they wait until the trade deadline, where if they really need to trade him, and it looks like the Pacers are going to get their hands pushed because Paul George basically stupidly came out and said, well, I don't feel like playing for the Pacers anymore. I'm just going to jet off to LA. So now the trade value is going to come down now.
It's gonna plummet, actually. But it seems to me, especially in since he started off the kind of era of the super team in the NBA, I do feel that the league, because Tom and I have been talking about, in recent weeks, how he compares to Jordan, because you don't
Compared to players from different eras.
Yeah, everybody always does, but I feel like the league tends to pivot around him more so than the league did for Jordan in his heyday.
Well, I tend to agree with you, but the way the league
I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, by the way.
No, you're right. But the way that the league is going, the super team is taking over the NBA. Now, they've tried to combat this with many different rules and issues, including to knock the salary cap down, which I think they did this offseason. They knocked it down by $3 million from 102 to 99. So there's no way to figure out how to combat this issue of super teams.
And I was gonna say, because knocking down the cap by $3 million, you said. I don't know if that's gonna do anything really.
It's not. It's not gonna do a damn thing. I mean, you're gonna see super teams. You might see Paul George and LeBron James and Russell Westbrook end up with the Lakers.
That's, to me, is a scary.
That is ball retractingly terrifying.
Think about that. Think about that over the next couple of years. You have Durant, Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, and then you have LeBron, Russell Westbrook, and Paul George. Imagine that.
Fuck!
That's the thoughts there. Nick Morgasen, before we move on from the NBA draft, I want two things. Number one, I want your take on the Ball family. And number two, I want just your thoughts, winners and losers of yesterday's draft.
You really want my thought on the Ball family?
Yes.
Oh, I know where this is going.
This is about to be what I call a major hot take.
Oh, great. I set it off.
Go forth.
So when I heard the news about LeVar Ball coming out and speaking about his son, who he thinks is the be-all, end-all of NBA prospects, he's going to be the best, and he was going after people, and we heard him on The Herd with Colin Cowherd, and he went off on Christine Leahy and started offending people, and leave your fucking son alone and let him play in the NBA. You're putting pressure on the guy now, your son, to be the next Michael Jordan when he's not going to be the next Michael Jordan if you saw his shooting stroke, which is awful. And I don't like the guy. The guy is causing a lot of issues. They're trying to sell fucking shoes for $500.
And the guy hasn't even set foot on an NBA court yet.
This isn't the Michael Jordan brand, okay?
Yeah. He hasn't proven he's on the level of Jordan or LeBron.
He's on the level of fucking Stephon Marbury.
Well, yeah, he might end up in China also.
Christ.
But basically, my lasting opinion on the Ball family is until Lonzo Ball goes out and becomes a scoring champion, an MVP, or wins a championship with the Lakers, which will probably be another 4 or 5 years away at least, the family is shit. And LeVar Ball can go, you know what, himself, because I can't stand him.
Well, you know what? I have to slightly, I understand what you're saying, Nick, but I do think that this is a game that's already in place, and LeVar Ball is playing the fuck out of it. He is.
He's a media whore.
It's a hype game. That's what it is. But I think it was the Lakers. It was either their owner or GM came out and said, we're happy to have Lonzo, and
Oh, Rob Pelinka?
I think so, but it was like, but let's focus on the summer league first. Let's make sure he does well in summer league before we get him on the team and such.
You know what's ironic about that? Rob Pelinka, who became the GM of the Lakers, former agent of Kobe Bryant. So think about that for a second as we draft a bunch of egotistical, high-priced talent.
There's nothing wrong with a bit of egotism from time to time, but the Ball family, I mean, they are the monolith, the apotheosis of self-promotion in professional sports. It was going to come to this point.
There goes Nick with his big words.
Yeah, well, it makes me sound smarter.
I mean, like I said, the thing with Leahy on a Cowherd show where he basically offended her right on the airwaves.
To her face.
This guy is going to destroy, I'm saying it right now, this guy is going to destroy the NBA. He's going to destroy the NBA's reputation. And it's going to cause a huge media mess because he's going to speak every single day, no matter good or bad. He's going to say that, oh, my son Lonzo Ball is the best, and you can't poo-poo on him because he was the number 2 overall pick.
I don't think it's going to go as far as to destroy the NBA. I mean, Jesus. Holy hyperbole, Batman.
But to answer that other question, we'll move on from the Ball family because I could shit upon the Ball family for days and days and days. Who won the draft? This is a tough question because I guess you would say, would the Celtics be up there? Maybe. They got Markelle Fultz, who I said before is the number 1 overall pick.
76ers.
Huh?
You mean the 76ers got Fultz?
I mean 76ers, you're right. Oh, I'm confusing picks. Don't mind me. The Sixers probably won the draft, I think, because they got the best player in the draft. Charlotte was another team that did pretty well. They kind of drafted some in-between players. They got the trade for Dwight Howard, which I don't understand why people want Dwight Howard anymore.
Neither do I.
Superman has become super bad at this point.
I want to give, what's it called? I mean, Boston selected Jason Tatum, which to me was a little shock. I thought Josh Jackson was going to go 3rd. So with that, I'm going to say I think Phoenix might have gotten a win too.
Well, I think there's an interesting background to that because did you hear the story about Josh Jackson and the Celtics?
No. Oh, that he didn't work out with them, right?
Yeah, and then Danny Ainge got pissed off beyond belief.
Right.
Well, he flew out all the way to Sacramento at 4 a.m. in the morning, and as he's on the plane about 2 hours or so away, he gets a call from his Josh Jackson's agent and says, "Oh, we decided to cancel."
My God, I feel terrible. That's
You really need to go far when you're feeling bad for Danny Ainge.
I mean, the guy had freaking 5 or 6 draft picks this year, and he's got like 2 or 3 in the first round next year. Give me a break. No one feels sorry for Danny Ainge.
right, but I'm just saying if that's the case. Well, sorry, Josh Jackson. At that point, you just sold yourself up.
Yeah,
I mean-
well, was it a pipe dream? And I know we're gonna get a little bit more into the Knicks later, but was it a pipe dream to think that the Knicks would ever try to trade up and pick him up?
Well, it's funny you brought that up because I have something from Ian Begley during the draft that Boston offered the Knicks its number 3 overall pick, another player to be named, which we don't know who that is, and an additional lottery pick that they think that they could have acquired that last night in a trade for KP.
Wait. Now that we're getting into this, I have to do. I have to do it.
What?
Go ahead.
The Unspoken Podcast now goes to the New York Knicks and the circus.
Guitar Jimmy's Bug Fuck Circus.
But to answer your question there, that apparently there was some kind of mega trade that Boston was trying to offer the Knicks, and it included their number 3 overall pick and another additional lottery pick, which they had for next year. I think that was from Sacramento or LA, whichever one it was. And they basically turned it down. Now, Phil Jackson, in my opinion, has probably been the worst GM in the league.
Wait, time out. Let's just talk about the ownership for a second and yesterday, because yesterday was probably the day that all Knicks fans were dreading.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There was chants apparently that went down in the draft that said there were fire Phil chants, which I agree with the crowd for crying out loud. Fire the damn guy. He does not fit as a GM. Now,
let's also keep in mind that everything last night was on Phil Jackson, and you know why? Because their owner, our lovable owner, James Dolan, was not even at the draft. He was playing in his band
concert.
Are you surprised?
Wow.
I see this as 2 things. I see this as a really stupid thing because worry about your band more than the future of this franchise. But it's also genius because it's like if something bad happened, he could be like, "Oh, sorry, I was in my band. You blame it all on Phil."
It is apropos. It really is.
Here's what I think.
Rome burns, Nero plays the fucking fiddle.
Now, if you saw the quote yesterday, because Phil likes to come out and basically trash all his players so their trade value go away. Kristaps Porzingis, he talked about him and said, as much as we love this guy, we have to do what's best for the club. All right, Phil, let's get something straight here, okay? This is about to be a burning hot take. I have a lot of burning hot takes.
Yeah, go.
So, hey, Phil, your ass needs to be fired from this Knicks team. You're a great coach. You won 11 championships between the Bulls and the Lakers. And the only reason you won those championships, Kobe and Shaq, you had Michael, you had Scotty, you had all the players, but you have made the worst decisions ever as the GM of the Knicks. You've spent more money than you've had to. You've brought in crappy players like I can't remember the point guard's name from Toronto that they got.
They got Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Carmel. They had
Calderon. That's it.
Calderon. Oh God.
Who ended up being an injury disaster.
Just the mention of that name makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
But Phil, what are you saying here? As much as we love this guy, we have to do what's best for the club. Are you telling me, first of all, this guy is 21 or 22 years old, and he's 7'2", and he hits threes, and he can play the game for you as your centerpiece, and you want to trade the fucking guy? Come on, Phil.
Feelings got hurt due to an exit interview?
Second of all, well, let's talk about Phil Jackson and exit interviews. Remember, he also traded away Shaquille O'Neal with an exit interview. Also, by the way, let me throw this out there on Around the Horn yesterday. I want to say a thank you to Frank Isola for pretty much shitting on the team because, let's face it, it is a Phil Jackson problem. And then when Bill Plaschke had the nerve to say, oh, he's just playing mind games like he did as
he wants to be fired. He wants all that $60 million. That's all there is to it.
Does the Buss family out in L.A. know something about Phil Jackson that we don't?
Yeah, besides being married to their daughter?
They are. The Buss family, they must have done something to him. Some kind of sleeper agent thing that they must have hypnotized him to subliminally screw the Knicks up for the next decade or so. And they are succeeding in that plan.
And let's not forget, third of all, well, I mean, on one hand, let's face it, he's not a coach anymore. He's running an organization. So
he's a figurehead.
Right, he's a figurehead. So these mind games, quote unquote, that Bill Plaschke is talking about aren't going to essentially work. And it's just so funny because, I used to have this thing because I don't really follow the NBA often, but I still know people who do, who pretty much shit on the Knicks for taking international players. You got to think about this. On a team that had Carmelo, Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Kristaps Porzingis, and all the rest, Porzingis, the international draft pick, stood above them all as the best player because everybody on that team, I'm sorry, it's guilty. We're all prima donnas in one way or another.
You realize the Knicks fans were absolutely going to lose their minds if Kristaps Porzingis didn't turn out to be an amazing player. They would have absolutely lost their mind. They would have called for Phil. They were rioting outside of Madison Square Garden.
There would have been rioting last night if he had been traded.
Well, that's another issue for another day. But
here's what I'm going at about why Porzingis was the best, and about this whole team. Let's face it. Derrick Rose, well, do we have to get into him? He's a fucking injury-prone player who has proved to be an overrated draft pick.
Let's not forget he got fined $200,000 for missing a game.
That's true too. Carmelo has been got ejected quite a few times in these games this past season. And I'm sorry, as much as Kristaps is the team, he still needs to learn from the veterans. And Carmelo, you ain't showing him good veteran skills by getting ejected time.
By the way, he needs to be traded. They need to get Carmelo out of New York. Do whatever it takes. I don't care. Trade him for a bucket of baseballs. I don't care. Just get him the heck out of New York.
The Phil Jackson Carmelo thing is a whole other story. And then you got Joakim Noah, who got suspended 20 games for failing a fucking drug test.
Well, yeah. Well, if that wasn't the harbinger for the next season, I don't know what is. It's like God dropping an anvil on Hitler's head. Go, you got it. You get it!
This team, man.
You know what, though? The whole Phil Jackson situation with the Knicks, it's like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. Like, he's chasing the Roadrunner to try to catch that championship, but he keeps running faster and faster and faster away. He can't catch it.
And he's going to get run over by a bus he didn't know was there the entire time.
Maybe he should go join Jeannie Buss in L.A. Oops, did I say that out loud?
Oh! Ouch! That is the twist of the knife. So that is.
Oops.
I must say though. I mean, in all seriousness, I do not know. His thinking is the piece that came out. I read a piece in ESPN yesterday saying that Phil thinks that KP's game could improve in this, and his shooting wasn't as good.
He's 21 years old, 22 years old.
Yeah, it reeked to me of character assassination.
Oh, it did. Just like Carmelo Anthony. I told you, Phil totally character assassinated Carmelo Anthony, and that's why they've been trying to trade Carmelo Anthony. There's no trade value for the guy because Phil freaking destroyed his reputation.
He did. He absolutely did.
And what's the only thing a man has? His reputation.
Well, that and his money. Oh wait, he's not married anymore. Oh, he doesn't have that.
Damn, you are just coming out spitting fire today, Nick, huh?
Well, I'm totally mad about this Phil situation.
No, we are too. We are.
I'm a Nets fan for crying out loud, also.
but by association, it brings the image of New York sports down. It really, really does.
It does. It definitely does. I mean, look at all the teams in New York right now. The Jets stink. The Giants are totally in another era. The Nets are bad. The Knicks are going to be 10 years away from a championship. The Mets are an abomination with their pitching. The Yankees are kind of up in the air. They've overperformed because they were supposed to be an under 500 and maybe win 75 teams. Look at the state of New York. It's all about the media and its reputation of twisting the knife, like you said.
Yeah, we are going to, but we're going to talk about the Yankees later. We'll get to that. Believe me.
Yeah.
But, we like to consider ourselves. MSG likes to consider itself as the sports mecca, and that has not been the case in 25 years.
Oh no, hell no. I mean, the way that the Madison Square Garden looks, the network. Newsday, Cablevision, whatever you want to call this fucking network of media. James Dolan doesn't know how to run an organization. He'd rather just, like Tom said before, pass it off on Phil and let him take the crap and let him fall in the mud and take it.
And he gets to play in his Eagles cover band, so that's, yeah. He gets to wear his hat and nobody knows that it's Guitar Jimmy, but it's actually Jim fucking Dolan.
But basically, here's the deal. Here's the dirty secret.
Okay.
James Dolan needs to sell the team. He
never will.
I know he never will, but it's like also we joke about this. But had KP been traded and there had been some sort of riot outside of the Barclays Center, it's like what my friend Corey said in our interview yesterday for Cheap Seat Sports. At what point, and I think we've mentioned this too in the past, Nick. At what point does the leagues have to step in and say, okay, something's got to be done here?
They're not going to do it because. And this goes for all leagues. As long as you have money to bring to the sport, they're not going to care whose money it is. Look at the Florida Marlins in Major League Baseball right now. They're desperately trying to get Derek Jeter and an ownership team to buy the freaking Marlins for $1.3 billion.
And Derek Jeter doesn't even have the cash to put it together by himself.
But you see how desperate they want him in the ownership group?
Right.
Yes. They want that kind of profile.
Hey, all the NBA teams, well, not all, but a lot of NBA teams, from what I hear, want Barack Obama as an owner.
God. Why?
That I can actually, he doesn't make that much money.
But look at Mark Cuban. He's a high-profile NBA owner. Now, has he gotten his fair share of fines, and has he been caught for tax evasion and fraud?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. But he's probably one of the best NBA owners in all of the NBA.
Because he cares about the team.
Because we've talked about this, but they've been talking about this before. Mark Cuban is probably the last fan kind of NBA owner, where he's actually a fan of the product and everything, watches it closely.
Him and Ballmer.
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer is probably one of the best owners right now, too, for the Clippers.
And that actually ties into my next point. You won't see who is it that Steve Ballmer took over for? Donald Sterling. But you won't see the NBA take control of the Knicks unless, I don't know, somebody videotapes Phil Jackson, spouting out, awful, despicable racial slurs.
Well, Phil and James Dolan.
Yeah, it would have to be the both of them. It would have to be such a PR disaster that the league will absolutely step in.
Well, the Knicks are already in a PR disaster, but man, that'd be a hella worse of a PR disaster.
It would have to be in a PR apocalypse.
Yeah.
Oh no, it'd be worse than a PR apocalypse. You would never get out of this PR disaster. I mean, but the thing with Donald Sterling, we saw that issue, how long that took to finally die down. Now,
it took upwards of a year.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the way, and just a few more to clear up NBA free agency.
I was just going to say, let's get into NBA free agency because we know you have to run soon, Nick. So let's get into free agency. Just give me your thoughts about the big free agents out there. Who's probably going to get them, all that jazz.
Well, the big free agent I'm hearing, and I couldn't believe when I heard this, was Andre Iguodala. That's the big name I'm hearing right now. So I'm finding this hard to believe. But the rumors are that Andre Iguodala is going to walk away from the Warriors to get $20 million from a host of 5, 6, or 7 other teams. Now, if that happens, I'm going to say sayonara, good riddance. He obviously didn't want to be there for the team, even though he won 2 out of the 3 championships and was the MVP unfortunately, the MVP because I don't think he deserved the MVP in the first championship. But
I thought Steph Curry should have gotten the 2015 MVP.
Oh yeah, definitely. But if Iguodala leaves, that's going to hurt them. Even though they say, oh, they have KD, they have Steph, and they have Clay, and all those guys. You need a defensive stopper. And he was a defensive stopper for LeBron James, as much as people don't want to say that.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know, but that's the big name I'm hearing. I'm hearing other speculations. James Harden, not a free agent, but he's going to get another 4-year, $168 million extension on top of his contract that he already has. Wow. What else am I hearing? That's pretty much what I'm hearing at the moment.
Isn't Blake Griffin a free agent?
No, Blake Griffin is on the trade market.
Oh, okay.
Chris Paul is a free agent now.
Chris Paul.
What I'm hearing about Chris Paul is that the Spurs are actually interested in the services of Chris Paul. So, but here's the sick part, and I was having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday. The max contract for a guy who's 32 years old and probably out of his prime, he is going to get a max contract, probably a max contract of 5 years, $205 million.
My goodness.
Are you seriously freaking kidding me that he's worth a max contract? No.
Chris Paul?
No.
No way.
But he's going to get it because someone will be desperate enough to give it to him.
Yeah, desperate owners do desperate things.
Yeah, they'll do it. I'm telling you, the Knicks will do it, or they will try.
I don't know. Is there any other quick things you want to get to before I got to run?
No, that's it. Thank you for joining us, Nick. We needed somebody who knows the NBA a lot better than us.
Yeah,
hey, anytime you need me for NBA news, I'll be around.
That's Nick Morgasen, the president of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, thank you once again so much for joining us.
No problem.
All right. And so with that, you are listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheap Seat Sports production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. So, Nick, that was pretty cool to have somebody who knew the NBA better than us to help to get the conversation going. We actually got into a deep conversation that lasted 45 minutes.
So, yeah, and that was more than I thought it was gonna take. But he's really good at this.
Definitely.
And we needed somebody who knew the league better than us just bloviating about circus.
Right. And thank you also to Corey Andrews, a good friend of mine, for yesterday doing the interview that we promoted on Cheap Seat Sports. So now, Nick, let's get into the Rangers, because we were going to start off with that. Have you heard about the big trade that just happened?
Yes, I did. Derek Stepan and Antti Ranta are going to the Coyotes.
In exchange for, I believe it was a defenseman named Anthony D'Angelo, and a pick in this year's draft. So pick in tonight's draft.
A seventh overall pick.
Oh, so it might not be tonight, then it might be tomorrow.
No, not 7th round. I mean 7th overall.
Oh, 7th overall. Oh, I thought it was a 7th rounder. That's going to be quite the interesting situation for the Rangers. Now, when I first heard this trade, I fucking hated it. Because I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but for those of you who are just following Cheap Seat Sports and myself right now, in 2015, when I had an old log, I said that Cam Talbot was going to leave and the Rangers were going to regret it. I think it's safe to say after the performance of Henrik Lundqvist this past season, the Rangers regretted it.
Yes.
And I feel like in this case, those who, saying those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Well, there you go. So Antti Ranta has been shipped off, and now they still have old Father Henrik in net.
And you have to find somebody. He may actually be a stick figure or a scarecrow, but you need to find somebody to back him up.
Pretty much.
But I'm surprised that they traded Derek Stepan. I mean, releasing Dan Girardi was no, you could see that coming from a mile away.
So supposedly, this was another cap clearing measure that the Rangers had to do.
Yeah, I get, and it seems to me like Gorton is, well, the Rangers GM Jeff Gorton. He's it seems to me like he's trying to do this to send a message where I will break this core up if it makes this team better.
And I mean, there is part of it is, you do have to get younger, but it makes me worry, we said that the Rangers window was closing, but now is it closing faster than expected?
Because all these pieces were traded. Is that what you're saying?
No. Pretty much. And I'm getting worried because, Stepan and Girardi, so now the Rangers are going to need a whole, defensive core again and a center that can win face. That's the one thing about Stepan that I'm seeing a lot of, okay, good, because apparently Stepan, not a lot of people like his face-off numbers. So now we need somebody who, can win face-off.
Yeah, his face-off numbers were not good.
So there is that upside to that. But also,
he was a good defenseman.
Right. And so you need a good defensive core now, because I said it before last week, but how funny is it that sometimes the defense on the Rangers scores more than its offense? But fortunately, I think that problem is slowly going away thanks to the young talent of J.T. Smith and Jesper Fast.
J.T. Miller, you mean?
J.T. Miller. I'm sorry. J.T. Miller, Chris Kreider, and Oscar. Well, we had Oscar Lindbergh, and now he's gone in the expansion.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
It seems to me like, well, you say that the window might be closing, but it depends on what they have. 2 picks in tonight's draft. They have the number 7 overall, and they have 21 overall.
Right. So
what you do with those picks will say a lot towards what you want this team to be. Is this going to be a prop-up measure, or are you going to be able to keep that window open because you're getting some good talent?
Absolutely. And the other thing I hated was I thought Ranta was younger, but Ranta was only 32. He's only 3 years behind Lundqvist, so he's been like a lifetime, backup goalie. And I'm looking at the Twitter conversation around the Rangers, their announcement and such. And supposedly there is this one player in the KHL that there's a lot of, hype around that essentially will take over for Lundqvist, his last name's like Shestiorkin or something like that.
Yeah, my brother will probably know how to pronounce his name. He probably already knows the guy's statistics.
Probably. I'm pasting his last name into Google right now so we can figure out who this guy is, and I can look up some numbers on him. His name is Igor Shestiorkin. He is in the Russian. He's a Russian ice hockey goaltender playing for, as I said, the KHL. Trying to see, is there a place where I can get his numbers? Does Wikipedia have some numbers on him? No, they don't.
They might not. You might. Yeah.
Hockey's Future might have some numbers on him. His prospect talent score is an 8. They give his probability of success a D. They say he's agile, he has great reflexes and lateral movement, but he's still learning to challenge shooters and set himself properly. But he does have the potential to be a starting, goaltender. So basically, there's still stuff he has to learn, but as some people have suspected, he could take over for Henrik Lundqvist. He could essentially be the next Henrik Lundqvist. A Russian Henrik.
I wouldn't put the cart before the horse in that respect, but I would definitely bring him up from Hartford and
no, he's over in KHL. I think he should go to Hartford first.
If the Rangers pick him up, then I would assign him to Hartford and see how he does. If he does well, then you stick him in.
I think what should happen, he should go to the AHL to learn some stuff and see what he's got. And if he does well enough, then maybe he spends a year. Pretty much what I was hoping for with Ranta this year would be like every other game or so. So like a game with Lundqvist in net, a game with the other guy in net, a game with Lundqvist in net, a game with somebody else in net. Basically, exchanging.
Yeah, this is going to be a project no matter how many times, no matter how many ways you slice it.
It is. It's going to be a project. And it's going to be a project with who they're going to get tonight, because you still got whoever they're going to draft. They still got to learn how to play NHL.
Yeah, and like I said, it depends on what they're going to be able to get. If they can turn that 7 and that 21 into something that is worth building on, then I guess the loss of Stepan and Ranta can be offset.
Right. So there's still a chance. So I panicked before and I said this was such a stupid trade, but you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. And there's a lot of talent out there. So let's take a look at some of the top prospects. I'm just going to go through some of the names of the top prospects that are out there. In terms of skaters, you have Nolan Patrick, Canadian. You have the Swiss Nico Hischler, who both of them are centers. You have Casey Mittelstadt, American center. The first 6 top prospects for skaters from the Score are all centers, funny enough. So if one of the teams that's picking before the Rangers doesn't go with a center and goes with a goaltender, oh, well, these are North American skaters and European skaters, so maybe not. But the first European skaters out of their top 6, 1, 2, 3, 4 can play center. So the Rangers could easily pick up a center in the first part of their draft and with their first pick.
Yeah, quite easily. But we will. Number 7, like the Knicks picking 8th. I mean, you do get some slim pickings, but the talent that you do get is a project rather than a can't miss, get him up to the bigs right now.
Right, but at this point, anybody could be a project. We know a lot of number 1, picks in sports that ended up being busts.
Yeah, but we should mention, in fact, that there is a new team in town. Yes, the Vegas Golden Knights had their expansion draft the other night, and they claimed Oscar Lindbergh. So,
but that wasn't their big pick. Their big pick, Marc-Andre Fleury, the winning goaltender of the Stanley Cup.
How the fuck did the Penguins not? How the fuck did they not protect him?
I don't know. I guess they were so happy with Matt Murray's performance that it looks like they'll go with Murray as their goaltender now.
Okay, but in the history of how good, I know, with expansion teams, the first year is always kind of rough. But in terms of how do you think, with this roster as constituted, how do you think they'll do?
I think, you know what's funny? Did you hear the statements from either their owner or general manager? They said that they were going to win the Stanley Cup within 5 years.
They did? I hadn't heard that. Oh.
One of the guys came out and said, "Oh, we're going to win the Stanley Cup within the first 5 years." And here's what I say: the prospect looks good. It's certainly not impossible, but there's a lot of young players on this team. So I feel like there's still going to be time to some growing pains and such. But I think the prospect is there. I'm not sure if within the first 5 years they'll win the Stanley Cup, but I think in the first 5 years they have the potential to become a contender.
At least within the first 5 years.
Right, especially with somebody like Fleury and Net. And even if they trade Fleury and they get more prospects, then it could be a team like the Washington in the MLB, what the Washington Nationals used to be and what the Houston Astros are now. Or trying to think of other teams and other sports where it was like the young grew.
Yeah, I think the Nats are a pretty good example.
Yeah. So basically I say I don't know about first 5 years of a cup, but I think it's not impossible, but maybe there's growing pains. But even if you don't win the Stanley Cup in the first 5 years, at least I think maybe within the first 5 years you can make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think at least the way the wild card system is structured, you can make the playoffs. It's hard, but it's not absolutely impossible.
I mean, I still think they can win. I still think they can win at least 30 games this season. I think they have the potential. They may not get there, but the potential to at most go 500.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Maybe even a couple of games over 500 if everything shakes out as it should.
And if they go 500 or over 500 in terms of like how expansion teams usually are in their first season, then suddenly that's incredible, and the bar and expectations will be raised.
Yeah, absolutely. And what they want, I mean, Vegas is still a city that gets a lot of fucking tourist traffic, and they want to be a cornerstone of this city as much as the Strip is.
Right, and I mean, Vegas is entering the sports market now with this team, as well as the Raiders when they go there.
They'll be getting the Raiders in a couple of years' time.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
But basically, I was going to say, but it's also, when you look at other sports and expansion teams, it's not impossible for them to win a championship within that time frame. I mean, the Florida Marlins won 4 years after they first had, was it 4 years or 5 years?
They came into the league
93, and then they won in 97.
So that's 4. Yeah, that's 4 years.
4 years after their first season, though. So that was their fifth season in the league, technically.
So I guess when the owners say 5 years Stanley Cup in 5 years, they're taking the Marlins example.
But the Diamondbacks did it quicker. The Diamondbacks won in their fourth season.
Yeah, when the Diamondbacks were established in
98, they won in 01.
Okay. Yeah, they won in 01, and that's 1996 was when they were established, right?
But they played in the first season in 98.
Oh, yeah.
So, basically it's not impossible. Teams have done it before.
Stranger things have happened in this game we call sports, Tom.
Yeah. You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast for the Undetermined Podcast Network, and it is a Cheap Seat Sports production. Nick, final topic of today. Let's get some Yankees stuff in.
Fuck! That's all I can say.
That's the end of the show. Good night, everybody.
It's just why. Every team goes through slumps. I know that, and perhaps it was foolish of me. I'm not going to even say perhaps. It was absolutely foolish and selfish and spoiled of me to think that, this team is bulletproof. No, this team is very, very, very mortal, as we have seen over these past 9-10 games. But I was not expecting them to just come out and, I'm not going to mince words here, shit the bed on the West Coast.
It always seems like whenever the Yankees go to the West Coast, something bad happens.
Yes, they've always sucked when they've gone to the West Coast. Oh, as far back as I can remember from watching this team. And that goes back to 98, 99.
Yeah. Basically, the Yankees have not been doing well on the West Coast. Well, facing West teams in general. They lost to the Angels yesterday, 10-5. I'm trying to calculate their losing streak. 2 of their last 3. They were all 3 of their last. They got swept by the A's. 6 out. So that's 6 out of their last 7, at least. 7 out of their last 8. 8 of their last 9. 8 out of their last 10. So 8 out of their last 10 games they've lost.
And that is not a formula for getting to the playoffs at all, much less playoff success. But has this been the fault? Have the Yankees offense just run into good pitching, or can the blame be squarely placed on the shoulders of the pitching staff, starters, and bullpen?
I think there's a mix of everything everywhere, truthfully, because you didn't mention injuries. You can't forget that. The Yankees are now so banged up, it's not even funny.
Yeah, well, plus, the fact that Greg Bird suffering a setback, and, Adam Warren going down, although he wasn't doing very well, and Jacoby Ellsbury still not being back.
CC Sabathia going down. And the blame on that injury is all on Chris Carter, in my opinion.
Which brings us to our next culprit, Chris Carter. I'm starting to sing your tune that you were singing last week. It is time if it is not time yet, the time is soon approaching where they will need to cut that man loose.
Right. And so remember last week, by the way, when I mentioned, obviously, we were talking about last week about the potential of Gleyber Torres going up, and that's not going to happen anymore.
Yes, because he slid into the plate and tore his ACL.
Yeah, and then UCL got torn. So basically, but to clarify something, because I was confused on something, and you're like, oh, I'd rather listen to the manager who says he's not major league ready. But here's what happened. Basically, because I got some clarification later. What was going on was we were going to have pretty much a bigger Jeter A-Rod situation, because Torres technically is more a shortstop. So you would have Didi and Torres, and you needed somebody to move to third. But what I also was told from others who I talked to about the situation was, in that scenario, the Yankees were potentially thinking of moving Starlin Castro to third, because they say Castro has an arm, that he pretty much short throws the ball because he's playing second base. But if you moved him to short or third, he has the potential to fire rockets.
He can make up that lack of skill with an obscene arm strength.
Right. So their plan, I guess, was once Torres was called up to either have him to move Starlin to third, and then either have him play second and keep Didi at short, or have Torres play short, move Didi to second, and get Chase Headley, to the bench and off the team with Chris Carter.
Yes.
But that's not going to happen now.
Nope, not going to happen. If it was a pipe dream, and unfortunately it will stay that way.
But I'm glad at least you're starting to come to my senses there. It's like at least with Chris Carter, but I still think with Headley, time's up, gotta go.
It is beyond frustrating to see this, and I know, I'm a Yankee fan. I can't act spoiled, but sometimes I just can't help it. Sometimes I'm just that big of a dick. Sometimes when it comes to sports, and I apologize. I really, honestly do.
It's the blessing and curse of being a Yankees fan.
It is, where it's a blessing that you get to see them win. It's a curse that you have to act like you have to act like the universe pivots around you and your fandom. And
it's also a curse when shit like this happens.
Yeah, it is, and it's a curse that you have to care that much when so many other teams would give their left nut for Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez.
Right. Now, here's the thing. I'm happy and sad about last. Not happy. I'm relieved. I'm relieved on a fantasy level because I was playing a team that had Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge. So, little relief there that I managed to tie instead of take a loss, because that would have been a big loss for me. But on the other hand, as a Yankees fan, it's like, okay, maybe this week, like last week was the week to lose. Maybe this week they'll turn it around, and, well, they haven't.
We will see what happens tonight at Texas.
In New York, facing Texas. I know that because I'm going to the game tomorrow, so I pray that it doesn't rain on my parade.
Yes, it actually is supposed to rain tomorrow.
Oh, come on, no. Because then I'll have to go to another game because I won't be able they'll have to move the game to another day because we wouldn't be able to go Sunday because Sunday's Old Timers Day.
Yeah, and there's no way you're getting in there.
Right. So I'm hoping it just rains in the morning tomorrow. So at the very least, maybe the game's delayed to 2:00 or 1:30.
Have fun.
I know. I'm excited. My first time at the new stadium, so that's gonna be.
You are going to love it, especially with the bar that opened. It is literally. It has that same feeling when you walk out and you onto the to your seat. It takes your breath away. The old stadium did that, and the new stadium does a pretty good job of replicating that experience. But you get all the creature comforts of you get the good food, you get the the bar to sit down and have a drink. I mean, I'm a sucker for that stuff. I know I should be focusing on the game, but feed me and I'm yours.
Yeah, well, I can't wait. We got tonight we got Yu Darvish saying the crappiest player well, not the crappiest player, but the crappiest pitcher on the team right now, Masahiro Tanaka, so that's not a good sign. Tomorrow, tomorrow's going to be very interesting in the pitching matchup. It's Sessa against Austin Bivens Dirks. So you got pretty much two young guys? Two young guys?
Yeah, veritable. Who's that? Baseball talent.
So that's going to be very weird. And then Sunday you got Nick Martinez and Michael Pineda.
And Pineda's pitched fairly well.
He's pitched fairly well, but a couple of days ago, Bad Mike showed up.
Yeah. So you can't really. God knows who you're going to get these days.
So
a week from now, we may be singing their praises. We will see. That's how baseball is. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right, but I'm still going to hold by my stance. I think trade deadline, Yankees, maybe even sooner, considering what's going on right now, Yankees got to do something to get Carter off, and they got to do something to get Headley off.
That came out wrong.
Off the team.
Or did it?
Off the team.
Yeah, I know what you meant, but I couldn't resist.
I know. And there's a lot of talk about Gardner. And it's like we said, I don't know about Gardner. I think the priority first should be the infield, maybe even a pitcher. I heard about the Pirates, and they're not going to trade Garrett Cole, so there goes my theory.
I told you.
Yeah, but now they said they want to rebuild the franchise, but they do want to do it around Garrett Cole, that's a weird statement for the Pirates to make.
Yeah, but the Giants could be looking to sell off some pieces.
That's true.
So if the Yankees managed to right the ship, you could definitely have some pickings there. Maybe talk to the Royals if they slide.
Well, here's the recent report that just came out from the Score that came out 3 hours ago. Report says that the Royals won't be sellers unless they, quote, completely collapse. I don't know. But because you said the Royals, so I was talking about this with somebody before, I got to mention this. I think maybe they could make a move. It might be costly. It might cost some prospects, but Mike Moustakas or Eric Hosmer.
Oh my goodness, that would be something.
Or if we're willing to pay the super price, both.
Oh no, I one or the other. I would definitely do one or the other.
Yeah, but if they got both, that'd be a wet dream for the trade deadline.
You would need to give up Aaron Judge or Gary Sanchez, and that ain't fucking happening.
Right. If we got one, that's good. If we got both, oh my God, that's amazing.
Let's not be spoiled, though.
I know.
Let's take what we got and be grateful for it.
Right. But they could also use a pitcher. Like I say about Gardy, I don't know if trading him is right, but if the price is right. Only because Aaron Hicks has been having the season of his fucking life.
Yeah, and that's why Ellsbury being hurt doesn't hurt that much.
Right. It might hurt fantasy teams, but it doesn't hurt the Yankees because fucking Hicks is doing amazing.
And you want him to keep it up. You definitely do.
I hope this is the start. Like the second half of his career is now going to be a surge.
I really hope so because the Twins, he was hot shit when the Twins first drafted him. But I think the Yankees, he's finally, I could be wrong, but I think he's finally starting to realize what the Yankees saw in him and nobody else, including me, did.
Right. So basically the Yankees are in a bit of trouble, but maybe they can turn it around. There's still a month till the trade deadline. All-Star break coming up, so now's the time to figure out, what the fuck you're going to do.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, we will.
And that is going to do it for this edition of the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheat Seat Sports production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Go like the Facebook page and the Twitter page for the podcast, both at the UDUP and at CS Sports Site for Cheat Seat Sports on both Facebook and Twitter. And check out cheapseatsportsite.wordpress.com for all the latest articles published by me and other people. Nick's going to write something soon.
Yep, I will.
And yeah, that's going to do it for episode 24. Nick, next week's episode 25. 20 episodes.
Oh my goodness gracious. Somebody should bake a cake.
So we'll see you for the big episode next week. Until then, I'm Tom Lobato and Nick Federa. We'll see you around, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheap Seat Sports production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Good night, everyone.